Good day. So in the last week or so, I've been noodling on the idea of rebuilding Snippet Expander's GUI with Gleam instead of Svelte as the front end. So Snippet Expander's GUI is a Wails app, and a Wails app is Go backend with a WebKit front end, so you can have whatever web technologies you want on a desktop app. Bit like Electron, but much lighter, and using Go for a lot of the work, and then you just hook up your UI. Kind of, as you might have seen from previous videos, very interested in Gleam at the moment, and I haven't used Gleam now for a couple of months since I worked on WP Cron Pixie, which was switching that from an Elm app to a Gleam for its WordPress dashboard widget. And I've been looking for a project and thinking about some changes to Snippet Expander. I thought, okay, maybe I could put those two together. And then there's some other projects later on that I definitely want to use Gleam, but I'm not quite there yet, not ready. So, but there are things that kind of get in the way when you're using, well, potentially there were things that might get in the way with using Gleam with Wails, because Wails generates a sort of binding set of JavaScript functions that you can use to say, hey, this function in the back I can call from the front end, but it uses promises for every single function that you have defined on the back end, and that's a bit of a problem when it comes to using something like Gleam, which doesn't really want to be used in promises, especially if you're using Gleam with a web UI front end like Lustre, which we'll get to in a minute. So anyway, I had to muck about with that, and I think I've come to find a solution which is clean enough, and I thought I might talk about that today. So let's go over here. Oh, I'll bump that up a bit. Okay, it should do. Hopefully you can see that. So quick recap on what Snippet Expander is. So this is, I've just hit a shortcut key, and now I've got the search and paste window, and you can see I've got a bunch of snippets, and you can see the short form there, like ADEP, TDR, and that kind of stuff. In something like LibreOffice, you can just type that little snippet and it'll expand to what the rest of that display is. I'm just in a terminal here, so I can't do the typing bit, and also I want to show the UI. So, but I can come down here and I can hit return on that, and it just pastes it in. So if you've got an inaccessible app, then you can use this shortcut window to go find a snippet, quickly type some part of it. So if I just do snip, I've got quite a few there for Snippet Expander, but you can see it's come down there, and I can also just do something like date or whatever, and it's got these date ones and this, that, and the other. Find it, paste it, and it does all kinds of expansion along the way, like expanded dates. So yeah, and of course, if you've got snippets like that, you need to be able to manage them. So it's got obviously a different mode, which is the default of just here's your snippets in alphabetical order, and you can go in and edit them, or remove them, that kind of stuff. And of course, you've got some settings as well. So you can start the daemon on boot. Auto expand, you can turn that off if you want, so you don't get any typing and expansion in LibreOffice and stuff like that. I think it's off by default, actually. I think you have to turn it on. I'm not sure, can't remember. Then you've got this search and paste window that I showed just before, There's a shortcut key. Normally it's Control and backtick or grave. On this desktop, which is Pop! OS with Cosmic Epoch, I haven't yet sort of enabled automatically creating the shortcut for you, so you have to go and do it yourself, which isn't too hard. But on GNOME and KDE, it does that, and there's a little bit of UI there to show you it's done, and you can just say no, thank you, and delete it. And then you've got a focus search box here, so when I went into the search and paste window, it automatically went into the search box, so just start typing it. That's on by default, but you can say no, I don't want that, I just want to be in the list. If you just want to have, okay, it puts the most recently used at the top first, so you might always want to just go grab that most of the time, and then occasionally pop back into the search if you need to. And then of course you've got import and exports. Oh, and then there's a little bit of an about page as well, just showing the logo and version and links to bits and bobs, including the license. So that's Snippet Expander, and as I said, that's built with Wails. And Wails is a Go app, as you can see here in its source code. There's a main, and then there's a app.go, and these are the sort of main bits of it. And I'll just quickly pop into there so you can see what they're like. So in the main, this is where you get the app up and running. So you're basically creating a window with options in this case. And this is Wails version 2 that I'm using here. I haven't moved on to version 3 yet. It's still in beta, I think. When that gets stable, then I'll do the work to switch to that, I'm sure. So you can see it's basically creating this app object here, which we'll come to in a sec. And then I've just got some bits and bobs that I fire up and put in some default sizes depending on what type of window you have, whether you've got search and paste or not. And then just set some basic things for the window based on various options. And then that app object, I want to go to, I'll just go to the next one, has all these functions in it. So it's a little struct here that I've put some extra bits and bobs in because I have a dbus server dbus client in the in this particular Go app, which is talking to other parts of Snippet Expander, because Snippet Expander is made up of a Go-based daemon, which is where most of the work is done. It manages a database of snippets, and it does a communication with the OS to do the paste and manage the pasteboard and stuff like that. And that's got a dbus server in it, and other parts of Snippet Expander talk to it through dbus. And then we've got the GUI in this case, which again is a Go app built with Wails, and that talks over dbus to the daemon to say, hey, give me a list of snippets and this, that, and the other. And then we've also got the expander daemon, which again, which is written in Vala, not Go, because the bindings for the accessibility toolkit just don't work. They're not exposed to other apps, to other languages other than C and Vala. So I had to write that in Vala so that it could do all the accessibility stuff, so that it could do auto expansion when you're typing the right things and that kind of stuff. And then there's a CLI as well. So there's a little Go CLI, which again talks to the daemon to manage it basically, and also can grab a list of snippets and this, that, and the other. But we're talking about the GUI because that's where I'll be doing the changes. And here you can see I've got a little startup here, but then you start to see some public functions which are hanging off the app. And these are all the ones that are then exposed to the front end GUI. And you can actually call just from JavaScript functions. And and I will be using them via Gleam using FFI, which I'll get to in a sec. So if we look here, if I look, what have we got? We've got like a ping here. Daemon running is a function there. But I think there's another ping. Yeah, there's like a ping here. So you can say from the front end, I can go ping with a string, and it then goes through this go backend over dbus to the daemon to see whether it's alive, and the daemon should return the expected string. And if it doesn't, then it's probably not there, or at least it's got issues. So you can use that, as you saw in the daemon running. And then there's a bunch of stuff like add snippet update and blah, blah, blah. And one that I used as my test for whether I can get anything working with Gleam, which is super simple UI, is get version. And that just returns the version variable, which is global. And by default, it will be set to trunk. But when I build Snippet Expander, I can tell it to embed a different version. And I'll quickly demo that, show that in a minute in the make file. So that's the back end of the Wails app. And I should probably show at the moment that's all sort of hooked up via Svelte. So here you can see I'm using the ping here. It's imported up the top there, line 25 from, I'll just go up there actually. Not line 25. It's got relative line numbers. Line 4. I thought it was a bit strange. So here you can see I'm importing the ping function from this Wails JS go main app.js. And that is the bindings file that's generated by Wails when you build the app. And then I'm later on, I'm using that down here. And all I'm doing is calling it in an async function because promises, and doing an await on it. And I get some sort of result back and I look at it. And if the result is Pong, yay, good. I know that we're connected. Otherwise, I'm assuming it's not. Something's got in the way. It's not going to work. So if I have a quick look at the function there, so Wails JS go main. Oh, yeah, just go. And if I look in here and I look for ping, there it is, and it's just some function that's attached to window. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole looking at that, but it returns a promise. So all you do is you call this ping with the arg, and it calls that function and returns a promise. So back to my little hacked up version of Snippet Expander, where I'm going to be doing some Gleam tests here. You can see it's the same structure there. We've got the app and main and that kind of stuff, and same front end, which you required for Wails. And if I go into front end, it's a Gleam app. And if I go into source, they've just got front end.gleam. Let's go to the top. And you can see it's Lustre. So with Lustre, you basically start an application and you give it an init, update, and view function. And this is for the model initialization updating the model and sending messages, and then the view. Yeah, we'll get to that in a sec. Basically, it's the Elm architecture. So you have a model, an update function, and a view, a bit like model view controller. But what happens is, based on changes to the model in the update function, so when the update function gets called at various points, it's given the model and the message, and based on that, it says, oh, okay, for that message, I'm going to do these changes. So here I'm saying update version, and I'm basically saying, here's the model, unchanged, and then I'm going to call this get version and get some other message, so that I can return from this function the model and some effect with them from the message. And these effects are the way that data's, well, events are basically driven in Gleam Lustre. So it's easier probably to look at the view first. So the view is just a HTML. We've got a little bit of text here, which is just going to display what's in the model. So if you look at the top there, or if I just go up there, I suppose, in the model, all I have is a version. That's it for this thing. It's super simple. So it's just a string, and I'm wanting to display that down here. So down here at the bottom, we have just a bit of text showing the model view version. And then on the button, whenever it's clicked, I'm going to send this update version message. And the button just has a get version on it. So if I go to update version in here, you can see that it's just a message. It doesn't have any arguments or anything at the moment. When that's emitted, the update function goes, oh yeah, okay. I'm going to generate, I'm going to respond with the model and get version, blah, blah, blah. And in this case, this get version function is down here. And it is taking the version updated message, which is just a constructor. So if you look in the message type above, version updated string. So here we've got a constructor function basically for a message. And then this is where the tricky bits come in. I need to hook into the backend to get that version from the Go side of things where the version is set. This is just test code. This is not something that I'd actually be using really, I think. I would actually be calling another function for like get items or add a snippet, that kind of stuff, or ping, which I probably should have used actually. But anyway, for this test. So what it's going to do is it's going to call this JS get version, which is an external function. So Gleam has this lovely ability to hook into JavaScript or Erlang functions. And when it's Erlang, it could also be like Elixir or anything which is on the beam, as long as it kind of understands the beam. So it's calling this JavaScript function, which is confined in Wails JS Go main app.js, and we're going to be calling the function get version. And the signature for that is I'm going to call this function JS get version because I'm using get version below. And as I said before, it's going to return a promise. So this is where the tricky bit comes in, because once you've got a promise, you've always got a promise, and you can't really get rid of them. So unless you just kind of ignore them at some point, but you need to get the value out of a promise, because when you call call a function that returns a promise, at some point it will hopefully resolve or settle, whatever you want to call it, and the value in it should be good, hopefully, unless it's an error, and then you've got to reject and all that kind of stuff. If you've used promises before, you know what I mean. So it's a pain in the butt. But there is a library written by Louis, and it handles promises. So we understand what a promise is, and we can get them from JavaScript. But you then need to deal with it without making everything in your app be a promise. So in this case, what I found I could do was basically terminate it and generate an effect instead by using this effect from, which takes a function with as a callback and is given another function that you can use to dispatch the message. Actually, I'll go look at the docs here. Yeah, I'm here then. So this is in the effect function module, sorry. Yeah, I'm in a Lustre effect. And on from, you can see it says construct your own reusable effect from a custom callback. This callback is called the dispatch function you can use to send messages back to your application's update function. So if you look here, when you call effect.from, it is expecting a function which can take another function with a message. So that function is the dispatch that it's just been talking about here, that inner function. And that's the one that's going to be supplied by Lustre and expects to be given the message that you want to send on and get an update for and all that kind of stuff. And you can see down here they're doing basically the same thing. They have a anonymous function in this case, which they are getting the dispatch callback sent into, function sent into, and then they are just using that dispatch to send a fetch state message with no arguments. Whereas for me, what I'm doing is I'm calling an effect from, and I have an anonymous function here, which is going to take that dispatch function. And then inside that anonymous function, we call the JavaScript get version, which is going to return a promise. And that promise I then map to my message that I want to send. So I'm passing in, when I call it up here, I'm passing in the type of message I want to use, which is version updated. So when this function is called, I am then going to send a message saying, hey, the version has been updated, and as its argument, as its value param, it has the version in it. So here I'm passing that in to get version as to message, and I'm mapping onto that, and I'll show you what that means. So the promise library map says run a function on the value a promise resolves to after it has resolved. The value returned becomes the new value contained by the promise. So the promise just carries on again. So here we have, when we call map, it takes in a promise as the first argument, which when you're using pipes, that's the first argument by default. So I'm really concerned about this, which happens to be a function with a generic value. And a message is basically a constructor, and in my case does actually have a value to be passed in. So that's all I'm doing, and then it's going to return B, which happens to just go through to the next promise as a value. So if we look here, all I'm doing is I'm mapping the message in, and that's going to pop out and be the argument to promise.tap. So it's going to be, if I got that here, yeah. So we're getting the promise back, and then we're going to give it another callback, which happens to be the dispatch in this case, which says, hey, I'm going to then carry on doing stuff, but I'm going to dump the value. So run a function on the value a promise resolves to. After it's resolved, the value returned is discarded. So in this case, I'm mapping to a message, and then I'm passing that through to dispatch. And when dispatch gets the value from the previous promise, which now includes just a message with a value in it, it's then going to dispatch that message with the value in it. So it sounds very complicated, but in the end, it's actually fairly simple. I'm basically just making sure that all this runs at a point when the promise has resolved. So because it's started from an effect, from clicking a button, when it's resolved, when that promise from the JavaScript call actually finishes and is settled, then the version is going to be displayed, because we get a version updated message come through the runtime with a version in it, and then I'm just going to update the model directly, because I don't need to use the old version of the model because I only have the one value here. So I just replace the model with a version, and then that's me. I don't need to do any more effects. I don't want anything else to happen afterwards. I am just updating the model. And when the model gets updated, down in the view, it's just going to render the version into some text. So I think I've probably really butchered that explanation, but in the end it comes down to, if I want to communicate with the Wails backend, all I need to do is set up this kind of mechanism. So for every function I want to call, I just do an FFI into, that's a foreign function interface, to get the version, to get the function in a form that I want, return the promise, and then I'm just going to go call it. And then at some point I'll have to start doing things like also putting in promise like reject and stuff like that. So if there's an error in getting anything, I'll need to handle that as well. But for this little demo, that's all I needed, was just to assume I'd get the text. Okay. So what does that actually mean? What have we got? So we've got this super complicated app now. Not really. It's very, very simple. So I'll just make it just now. So hold on to your hats. This is going to be such an impressive app to see. Ooh. So right, we've got this get version button. At the moment you can see that default 000 text for the version, and when I hit get version, it returns trunk and mucks up the styling on the button because I haven't got any CSS or anything set up here, and that's it. And now it's set, that's that. The model is now set to trunk, and so it'll always display trunk. And I should be able to change that. So if I do make, I'll look at the make file so you can see what that means. So here you can see So I've been making some changes here. There's a JS object that I'm now using along with some Gleam source code here as part of the build process. And that Gleam object is a dist frontend.js. And so that's going to be built when you do a Gleam make. You get stuff into build, but then I'm using this thing called ES-Gleam to then bundle everything up that we need into a single JavaScript file that is runnable as a JavaScript module. So here we have, so if we go down to this bit here, well, I've got a little bit here that just makes sure that ES-Gleam is installed. And that's a dependency on this JS object, which is going to be the dist frontend.js, which I'll be needing for the Wails app to hook into and use. And then for the actual JavaScript object, we go into the front end, we do a Gleam build, and then we do a Gleam run module ES-Gleam bundle, and that bundles all the things up into that JavaScript file. And then what have we got here? Then one of the first things I do is I generate. So this happens even before that, actually, thinking about it. We do a Wails generate module. So that's generating all those JavaScript functions with the promises. And then because of the way that we're doing the bundling, I need to move that library from its normal place, which is just in the front end. I need to move it into the Gleam source folder so that it can then actually be included in the bundle and be found. Because if it's outside the source, it doesn't seem to bundle correctly. So I've done that. So it just moves it in, and then that's how I'm referencing it in the Gleam code, just as an in source. Rather than being back outside the source. And then when the actual Wails app is built, you can see that I'm embedding the version from the make file, which by default is trunk at the top there. So if I just run make version equals 999, I think that should do it. With luck. And then I just run the binary again. And this time when I do get version, it says 999. That's cool. And that's it. So hopefully that gets me to a point where I can actually start doing some work on building out Snippet Expander with a Gleam front end rather than Svelte. So I get all the nice type safety and simpler syntax of Gleam, which I really enjoy compared to JavaScript and dependencies and promises and async await and all this kind of stuff that you have to deal with when you use an even Svelte. Like Svelte, lovely stuff, but it's still JavaScript. And I really do prefer Gleam. So I'm going to have a go at that. And if you're seeing this video, it probably means I've started recording sessions where I'm actually doing the work. I might do a few sort of private sessions where I'm just getting on with stuff, because when I'm recording videos and talking about the code at the same time, it goes so slow. But I think I'll probably try to get back to doing the occasional live coding and talking about bits and bobs. And then this time it's going to be Gleam with Wails and Go, probably. Although probably not a lot of Go, because that's kind of working until I maybe move on to doing some new features. And then I'll want to do some Gleam Go changes potentially there. But we'll see. So I guess that's it. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, take care. Bye.